Born to a performing family, at age 7, Prince had already written his first song and was on a sure path to stardom. And he did become a global superstar, beloved by millions of people, even to this day. But the more successful he got, the harder his life became, hopping from one tragedy to yet another. But why is that? To understand it, we need to start from the very beginning. Right from the beginning, Prince did not like his name. In fact, to put it in more severe terms, he really hated it and preferred to be called Skipper, a nickname given to him by his mother. His parents, John Nelson and Mattie, had only gotten married a few months before his birth in 1958. John had other children from a previous marriage, and Mattie had a son from a previous relationship. John worked in an electronics store during the day, but at night, he transformed into a fabulous jazz musician with the stage name Prince Rogers and his own band that was called the Prince Rogers Trio. Prince's mother, Mattie, had originally been a singer for the band before marrying John. After watching a late-night performance by his father's band, Prince decided he wanted to become a musician like his father. This was exactly what his father had wanted, having gone as far as naming his son after his own stage name, Prince Rogers. However, even with all this in place and a piano at their home, Prince was never allowed to play while his father was around. It sounds awkward knowing who his father was and what his desires for his son were. But for now, the young prince had other pressing problems besides not being allowed to play the piano. He was born epileptic and suffered from violent seizures, something he was teased aggressively about in school.
I've never spoken about this before, but I was born epileptic. And I used to have seizures when I was young. And my mother and father didn't know what to do or how to handle it, but they did the best they could with what little they had.
But that's not the only thing he would be in trouble for in school. He was also bullied for being smaller than the rest of his peers. He will admit later in life that he overcompensated for this in adulthood through his extravagant stage performances and displays. John was described to be strict and God-fearing, but with an explosive temper. Prince admitted later in life that his father had physically assaulted him. In truth, the home life of the Nelsons was quite volatile. Mattie and John engaged in yelling bouts that sometimes got physical. In a memoir published shortly after Prince's death, Prince recounts one such episode where, after a physical altercation, his mother ran into his room and told him, "Tell your father to be nice to me." Seeing the distress he was putting his family through, John decided to leave, and by the time Prince was 7, his parents had separated. Finally, when Prince was 10, John and Mattie officially divorced. Mattie retained the house as a divorce settlement, while John moved out to another property owned by the family. During the period of his parents' separation, a determined Prince learned the piano in his father's absence and wrote his first song. Prince, who had been a reclusive child, was beginning to come out of his shell. Following in the footsteps of his father, who had a small build just like him, Prince learned to dress sharply with the additional intent to shock and titillate, a style he'd maintain for the rest of his life. Meanwhile, in the time that followed after his parents' divorce, his mother Mattie remarried to Prince's stepfather, Haywood Baker. Haywood and Mattie lived together in her house. Although Prince later admits that Haywood's taking him to a James Brown performance influenced his style, he was not particularly fond of Haywood. Even though his relationship with his father was sometimes strained, Prince missed the direction and discipline he offered, something he believed Haywood lacked. As such, he did not respect Haywood. Their relationship became so fraught that, at age 12, Prince ran away from home for the first time, leaving his mother to go live with his father. He described that day as the happiest day of his life. However, John was more than just Prince's father. He was Prince's hero and the blueprint of what Prince wanted out of life. This arrangement did not last long. In 1973, when Prince was 15, his father John caught him with a girl in bed and immediately sent him packing. No amount of pleas would let John change his mind, and Prince admitted later that this was the last time he cried. For the rest of their lives, the relationship between the prince and his father would range from cold to cordial, with John missing Prince's first wedding due to their estrangement at the time. Within one of those times when he was house hopping, he moved in with an auntie. She eventually kicked him out too, forcing Prince to settle in at the home of a very close friend, Andre Anderson. Andre was Prince's classmate and the neighbor of Prince's father, John. In fact, Andre's father had played the bass for John's band, the Prince Rogers Trio. Andre would later go on to identify as Andre Simone and become a successful musician in his own right. But before then, Prince formed his first band called Grand Central, alongside Andre Anderson, one of Prince's cousin, Charles Smith, a neighbor to the Andersons, Terry Jackson, and another classmate, William Dougherty. Typically, the band played instrumental covers of their favorite music. By the time Prince graduated high school, the band's name had changed to Champagne. In 1976, when a record producer and sound studio owner, Chris Moon, needed a piano player for a record, he phoned the Champagne. After being impressed by Prince's skill as an instrumentalist, Moon offered him free use of the sound studio. He also persuaded him to start writing his own songs, and eventually became instrumental in getting Prince to the next stage of his career, getting a manager. At age 19, Prince signed his first management contract with a local businessman, Owen Husney. After recording a demo, he received interest from record labels like Columbia Records and Warner Bros., with which he signed a recording contract. His first album, For You, was released in 1978 to moderate success and about 350,000 copies sold. His second album, self-titled Prince, was released just a year later in 1979 and sold over 1 million copies. But perhaps his most impactful release was the album Purple Rain, which was released alongside the movie of the same name, starring Prince in 1986. With a hit album and #1 movie to accompany it, Prince introduced himself to a worldwide audience. By this time, Prince had repaired his relationship with his estranged father, with the two jamming together at tours, and John helping to write some of Prince's music. And this too would not last for long, unfortunately. After enjoying a few decades of commercial and critical success, Prince found himself in a jam. In 1992, he signed a deal with the recording company, Warner Brothers, worth a whopping $100 million at the time, and about $200 million in 2024's economy. He discovered soon enough that this new contract deprived him of ownership of his master's recording. This and other differences led to clashes between Prince and Warner Brothers.
I had searched deep within my heart and spirit, and I wanted to make a change and move to a new plateau in my life. And one of the ways in which I did that was to change my name. It sort of divorced me from the past and all the hang-ups that go along with it. I was, as it's been well chronicled, in deep dispute with my record label.
And which is Warner Brothers, right?
Yeah.
Which owns this network, I might add. Just
oh, they do?
Yeah, what?
We had some issues that were basically about ownership of the music and how often I was supposed to record and things like that. We got along otherwise. We just had came to head in those types of.
In 1993, he changed the stage name to a symbol and was thereafter referred to as the artist formerly known as Prince. To further buttress his point against Warner Brothers, Prince had the word slave written across his cheek whenever he was performing in public. By 1996, Warner Brothers and Prince had finally found a common ground and come to a resolution. That same year, Prince got married for the first time to 22-year-old Maite Garcia.
Outside the concert in Frankfurt, and I said, "That's my future wife." Just as, you know.
Mm-hmm. Prince had actually met Maite 6 years ago in 1990, when he was on tour in Germany, where Maite lived with his parents at a US military base. At the time, Maite was a 16-year-old belly dancer and had submitted an audition tape to Prince. The very first time Prince laid his eyes on Maite, he turned to his bandmate, who he was on tour with, and said she was going to be his future wife. When Maite finished high school at 17, Prince became her legal guardian. She moved back to America with him. At the time she was 19, the two officially began dating. For their Valentine's wedding in 1996, Prince paid as much as $500,000 on just flower arrangement alone. There were just a few guests in attendance, including Maite's parents, Prince's mother, Mattie, and stepfather, Hayward. Prince's father, John, was not in attendance. Shortly after their wedding, Mater found out she was pregnant. The couple was elated, and the child was named Amir, which is prince in Arabic. Mate gave birth to the couple's child in October of 1996. Unfortunately, Amir was diagnosed with Pfeiffer syndrome at birth. He died just 6 days later. A few days after the death of Amir, Prince and Matey appeared in a tell-all interview with Oprah, where Prince claimed his baby was okay despite rumors stating otherwise. 2 years later, in 1998, the couple miscarried yet another baby. During this period, Prince turned to the teachings of Jehovah's Witnesses to cope with the emotional pain. By the turn of the new millennium, the marriage had just about crashed, and the couple divorced. By 2001, Prince had undertaken baptism to become a Jehovah's Witness, and he remarried for a second time to Manuela Testolini, a Canadian businesswoman he had been cohabiting with. 5 years down the line, in 2006, Manuela filed for divorce after intervention by their religious elders could not save the marriage. Even though the couple kept the entire process shrouded in privacy, divorce documents showed that the couple fought over settlements, with Manuela requesting close to $42,000 per month in spousal support. Her reason being that she was the inspiration behind most of the songs in Prince's commercially successful musicology album. After decades of aggressive stage performance, a new problem plagued Prince towards the end of his life. He suffered chronic pain, and by 2009, he had developed serious mobility issues that required him to walk with a cane. Due to his beliefs as a Jehovah's Witness, he declined the hip replacement surgery that would require a blood transfusion, as this went against his religious beliefs. While it is unclear if he did undertake the surgery to cope with the hip pain, and in addition, ankle pains, Prince began taking prescription medication and eventually developed an opioid dependence. On April 21st, 2016, the singer was found unresponsive at his estate by his staff. Shortly afterward, he was pronounced dead by first responders. He was just 57. Found on him were fentanyl pills, a powerful opioid that he had gotten from the black market and had mistaken for common Vicodin pills. Toxicology reports showed fentanyl in his system was above fatal level, and his death was ruled as an accidental overdone. Due to the fact that he was neither married nor had any children at the time of his death, his estate was claimed by his 6 siblings. In the weeks following his death, over 700 people came forward as his secret spouse or descendant. While Prince had known many kinds of pain in life, his legacy and influence as an artist cannot be understated. He had 39 albums in his name and sold over 100 million records, making him one of the best-selling musicians of all time.